Hello and welcome back to Coin Lady channel. I have been served with a class action lawsuit. It's the one and only Ben Armstrong, better known as BitBoy Crypto. And I'll tell you right now, at the very beginning of the video, that from what I've seen so far, this lawsuit appears completely baseless. Now, I can't say with absolute certainty that this is true for each and every one of the defendants listed. However, I will say this, in regards to Ben Armstrong, it appears to be the case. I imagine this to be true of most, if not all, of them. To help clarify, I'll provide some additional information below. And I'll also give you some insight from Ripple's Chief Technology Officer and co-creator of XRP and the XRP ledger, David Schwartz. He spoke up to offer his opinion on the matter. However, it is important to note that I come from neither a legal nor a financial background. You shouldn't buy or sell anything based on what I say or write because I am not a legal or financial advisor. I'm just a fan who occasionally posts videos to YouTube about random crypto-related topics for kicks. So, let me just decrypt this headline for you. YouTubers who promoted FTX's $1 billion lawsuit are now being sued for promoting the case. I'll also attest that everyone mentioned here is a well-known YouTuber in the realm of money and, in the case of Ben, crypto in particular. There are, however, YouTubers who touch on crypto in their videos while focusing primarily on traditional finance. As a matter of fact, it's just extremely popular accounts with millions of followers. Well, that settles it. But here's how the piece itself reads. On Wednesday, a group of investors who dealt with the now-defunct cryptocurrency exchange FTX filed a class action lawsuit against a number of internet influencers, claiming that the influencers promoted the exchange by offering unregistered securities to their audiences. Among the defendants in the lawsuit are YouTubers Graham Stephan of the channel Money Mustache and Ben Armstrong of BitBoy Crypto, both of whom have built fan bases in the millions. Additionally, the lawsuit names 7 other individuals and the talent management firm Creators Agency, seeking damages in excess of $1 billion. Now, Decrypt attempted to contact Stephan for comment, but he has not yet responded. According to a report from the Crypt, Armstrong claimed that he was never paid by FTX and that he would be immediately filing a countersuit. "I've never talked to anyone at FTX or in their marketing department," he added. "None of that ever happened. As a result, all of the claims made against me are completely groundless, and proving this won't be difficult at all." The quoted material ends here. Well, I guess that clears up how I appeared to you. The popular YouTuber CoffeeZilla shared this. Many of you have probably heard of him. Oh, a huge passageway. Indeed, he has been online. A lot of ground has been covered over him. Where did FTX go wrong? Recently, he's made appearances on shows hosted by Lex Fridman and Joe Rogan. And he posted that on Twitter not too long ago, just yesterday. He announced that a class action lawsuit seeking $1 billion in damages had been filed against YouTubers who had promoted FTX. As a result, I was taken aback. I also have a friend who is a member of the XRP community hanging out with us today. Indeed, it appears to be a hoax. Here, have a look at this. Ben Armstrong forwarded the tweet and warned of a forthcoming countersuit. It's impossible that the attorneys working on this case could be any more incompetent. My experience with FTX has been entirely lacking, as I have never even received a Matref link from them. Demonstrate your lack of intelligence rather than just telling me so. Let me have it with these idiots and their lawyers. This prompted a reply from me, which I sent to him via letter. I actually tweeted at him, warning him that Ben and company are in for trouble. In that case, you can't just go around smearing people's reputations. As I read the lawsuit now, I see that FTX is accused of paying you. But how could they possibly know that? If FTX compensated you, though, it just doesn't add up. Nothing but assertions from them. And then Ben Armstrong wrote back to me and he said, "This is such a slam dunk for me. I can't even find humor in it. And it looks like they're just making like, that's all. Those blatantly untrue statements. Because Vince Armstrong is telling the truth, that's why. I see no reason why he wouldn't do so. Since denying this would severely damage his reputation, I highly doubt he would make such a claim. I have to take his word for it. Without a doubt. If that's the case, I just don't understand what they expected to happen. Really, we mean it. If you want to sue Ben Armstrong, how do you propose doing it? As a result of the fact that they state that a good chunk of the lawsuit was read by me. I read it, and then skimmed it. That was the part that stood out to me the most, though. They made the claim that FTX actually paid him. And how could they possibly know that? Simply put, they're making claims. And then there was this from Ripple's Neil Hartner. The defendants should have proof that they were paid by FTX, he wrote to me. If not, the litigation should be dropped immediately. According to this excerpt from the lawsuit, all of the defendants endorsed and promoted the sale of FTX IBAs without disclosing, in any of their YouTube or other social media posts, that they were paid hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars by FTX and profited from the sale of FTX IBAs in violation of SEC, FTC, and various federal and state regulations. But what if they didn't pay you? Then again, maybe you were just chatting about it. So what do you think of that? Also, this video was intentionally edited in such a way as to mislead viewers. Here we have a video. Here we have another video from Ben Armstrong, in which he discusses FTX insulin. And the way it's cut up, it makes it sound like he's endorsing the token or something. I saw that too. I was like, well, I know the video that he's talking about because I just happened to have seen the video that they used to slice this up. And so, Ben Armstrong posted the entire video here, noting that, this is the whole thing. For example, Satoshi Flipper was among those who commented that Ben Armstrong's promotion of FTX or whatever demonstrates Armstrong's unbelievable stupidity. This is why internet memes are not to be trusted. There is no background. It's a short video, less than 10 minutes. He can't follow along with a video, but he can fake being a dunce. And I have actually watched this video before. However, I acknowledge that this image is somewhat fuzzy. Here is where I stopped it to illustrate my point. Something that he penned. You can see the FTXS token FTT and Solana that he mentioned selling and dumping in this image. And the word evil is what he actually wrote. It's right there on your screen, and you're looking right at it. He declared in writing that they were malicious and that he would be eliminating them. Furthermore, there are those in the area who are attempting to portray him as a supporter of this by any means necessary. It's a bunch of nonsense. Just that I have a personal aversion to being around liars. I could tell that my biscuits were getting a little bit scorched. Basically, what I'm trying to say is... And then this happened. Yes, we're back on the CoffeeZilla thread, spreading the word far and wide as we did the day before. And somebody wrote to CoffeeZilla saying, I can see them coming. It's not my fault. For the life of me, I couldn't tell that it was a con. However, criminal negligence can occur if you unwittingly turn your followers into victims of a scam. That's not quite the case, and while that's a perfectly reasonable question, the answer is a little more involved. David Schwartz chimed in at this point. David Schwartz wrote back to the Nazi if they thought the information would be useful and had no way of knowing it was a scam. This is the antithesis of carelessness. Right. Then a person by the name of Khalid chimed in, arguing that paid promoters are exempt from due diligence. Do I understand you correctly? David Schwartz responded and said, that is what I'm saying. A paid promoter has no obligation to conduct more research than necessary into the businesses they recommend. If there are compelling reasons related to policy and free speech, we should maintain the status quo. The ultimate cost to these promoters will be to their reputations, as Zach pointed out in an email to David Schwartz. And then Khalid jumped back in and said, some victims of fraud, might be satisfied with the promoter being publicly embarrassed and suffer a loss of reputation. However, I believe that the vast majority would rather be paid. An answer from David Schwartz: when the government punishes citizens for what they say even when they have done nothing wrong, it is simply silencing its citizens. It's futile to try to figure out whether or not your words will get you in trouble at the time you say them, so it's best to just keep quiet. Which is a fantastic point, in my opinion. You're going to silence dissenting opinions. If you take the approach that some people might prefer, that is. And then Khalid responded and said, David, I agree that going after influencers and promoters in court for simply doing their job is not the best way to seek compensation unless they had an ulterior motive, conflict of interest, or intended to defraud. I'm confused as to why the government versus free speech angle is important to you. David remarked, this is a very important free speech issue. In response, liability in the absence of wrongdoing for promoters would make it more challenging for legitimate businesses, especially those that are smaller, newer, or in riskier sectors, to use spokespeople. If Tom Brady knew he could be sued for promoting FTX, even though he had no reason to suspect they were a scam, would he still bother to do so? Surely that would lead to the censorship of crypto startups and advocates alike. Tom Brady could be fined millions of dollars despite having done nothing wrong if the government were to tell him that he could praise a cryptocurrency exchange if he so chose. The same can be said about encouraging youth to consume more sugary carbonated water. I wonder what Tom Brady will have to say. Which is a point I think is very well taken. And while I haven't broached the subject on the channel in quite some time, I have given this some serious consideration. That's something I've considered for a long time. Before launching my channel, I gave this some thought because some viewers have expressed concern that I might be held liable for their decisions after watching my videos on financial topics like stocks and cryptocurrencies. That's just plain stupid. Because if it were true that just by asserting things, even if you're not telling people to go do a thing, if people do something anyway based on the topic that's being discussed, then imagine the implications if we were shutting down all of that activity. That's a ridiculous position to take. No financial or business news would be reported. Nothing would exist. Consider all the customers who come in to speculate on the stock market's future. None of that remains. Not even you could wear that. Put a stop to it on national TV. You'd take down access to it on YouTube and every other streaming service. No longer would you have access to this data and the expertise of those currently working in the field. Everything would have vanished. Individuals should be free to share their thoughts on any subject they choose, without worrying about the potential financial repercussions. Indeed, it's glaringly apparent. That's the case, without a doubt. Furthermore, they aren't, which is why this exists. Considering I've made no secret of the fact that I come from zero financial background, it's hard to imagine how a channel like mine could survive. I'm just sharing some thoughts on topics that pique my interest in the worlds of finance and cryptocurrency. That seems like it ought to be permitted. Well, obviously, otherwise you're stifling free speech, which harms people, not just the person who can't speak, but also the people who can't engage in the conversation and possibly learn something. What do you think? And that's exactly how I see it, too. But Khalid responded and he said, okay, so is Tom Brady an investment advisor? Have you seen his broker's license? If not, then why is he advising people to invest money in businesses he clearly doesn't understand? Surely he doesn't have any kinship with Jim Cramer. Just pretending to be Jim Cramer, of course. And David Schwartz chimed in, he's not recommending financial investments. He's reading a promotional script for a business. There is no message or opinion of his being conveyed. Someone is paying him to transport their stuff. So basically, promoters are actors. Khalid chimes in. Actors don't believe in what they say because the lines aren't theirs to begin with. Okay. Actually, I do see your point. If you can show they were just reading from a script, then you have your answer. David Schwartz acknowledges that online influencers are unique, but he maintains that the same principle applies even though the context is different. In a situation where it is unreasonable to expect a speaker to distinguish between good and bad speech, punishing them for speaking amounts to the government forcing them to shut up entirely, even if they did nothing wrong. Discouragement of both good and bad speech can be achieved through punishment of the latter. When David Schwartz hits one out of the park, the reason I'm writing this is because I think it's important for you to know. Indeed, you're entirely correct in saying that. I could say, hey, you know what? I really like cheeseburgers, and you go out and buy me a cheeseburger. I didn't advise you to go out and buy a cheeseburger, but you did anyway, and now you're fat and addicted to the stuff. What do you mean it's my fault? Obviously, that is not the case. There is certainly such a thing as individual accountability, but the question really boils down to this. Do you want society to be able to openly discuss money and cryptocurrencies, or do you not? Then again, what's the distinction? Where do you stand on the issue of anonymity? Is it possible for you to say it to me directly? The problem is that eventually it becomes completely ridiculous. Let's emphasize how incredibly moronic this is, too. As a result, Kevin Puffrath has been established. My pronunciation of his name may be off. Although I was unfamiliar with his name, I soon learned that he is quite well known, having amassed hundreds of thousands of Twitter and YouTube followers. In my opinion, it's even larger. Actually, it's in the millions. Kevin, Ben, is one of the defendants named in the lawsuit. The following was also posted to his Twitter account. And I agree that he makes a very compelling case here. So, he says, if you're still on the fence, hopefully this will sway you. Lawyers for the weenie babies in Florida are now suing YouTubers like me because of FTX. The world needs to grow up and see the real Turks. A real estate agent who recommends an electrician but doesn't stand behind that recommendation. The equivalent analogy in this case would be that's FTX's anyone. One who points the finger is also weak. In addition to signing a contract and acting as your fiduciary, a financial advisor is also compensated for providing objective advice based on their assessment of your unique financial situation. A yelling person urging you to buy a Tesla from a soap company, Fox, based in London, is not a registered investment advisor. A real estate agent is not liable for the seller's fraudulent acts if, for instance, he or she refers you to another agent in exchange for compensation. That fault lies with either the seller or the inspectors. Here, fault? Also, insiders, not the agent who referred you to an agent for a commission. And you are absolutely correct in saying that. It's blindingly obvious that if you think it's bad for people to give unsolicited financial advice, then people shouldn't give unsolicited advice on any topic because there's always the risk of someone taking offense. If you think that way, you're suppressing people's right to speak their minds. In any case, that's a great conversation starter. Since this is happening, I figured I'd give my take on things. Therefore, it appears that this is absurd. I mean, I'll keep you updated on the story's progress, but it does. I haven't done a complete investigation into all of the defendants to determine whether or not they committed any crimes. However, I'm trusting Ben Armstrong's word on this matter. He claims that he was not paid and that he had no contact with anyone at FTX. If they don't have evidence to back up their claims, then the suit must be lying about him. As such, it is pointless and frivolous, and can be safely dismissed. The term financial advisor is not one that I use. Nothing I say or write should be used as a basis for making financial decisions. In the end, please like and hit the subscribe and bell button. See you in the next video. Bye.